The leadership of Britain's government changed hands this morning. Liz Truss will take over the role of Prime Minister from Boris Johnson, who handed in his resignation to the Queen earlier today. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer has the latest.
Let me say that I am now like one of those booster rockets that has fulfilled its function, and I will now be gently re-entering the atmosphere and splashing down invisibly in some remote and obscure corner of the Pacific.
Well, not quite. After all, he is a sitting member of Britain's Parliament. But he did formally hand off to the incoming Prime Minister.
And I will be supporting Liz Truss and the new government every step of the way.
In spite of the scandals that plagued his time in office, Johnson has plenty of supporters. But he leaves a country bitterly divided by Brexit.
We can get Brexit done now.
His controversial project to lead the UK out of the European Union. More recently, he's very publicly supported Ukraine and committed nearly $4 billion in military and humanitarian assistance at a time when Britain is facing huge economic problems. The economy will be the first challenge for new Prime Minister Liz Truss.
And I also want to thank our outgoing leader, my friend, Boris Johnson.
Arguably, he also left a poisoned chalice. Russia has cut off gas supplies to Europe, sending energy prices rocketing up at a time of soaring inflation. But in her acceptance speech, Truss did her best to sound upbeat.
I will deliver a bold plan to cut taxes and grow our economy.
Liz Truss got the leader's job because she was voted in by her party. But among voters, polls show she is unpopular. Prime Minister Truss will be coming back to London this afternoon sometime to start work. She went to Scotland to see the Queen. That's a break with tradition. Normally that handover of power would happen here in London, but the Queen is frail, she's elderly, and so she stayed right where she was at her estate in Balmoral on vacation. And Liz Truss and the outgoing Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, went up there this morning. They'll be back in London this afternoon, and a new chapter begins. Anna?
Well, Liz, I'm wondering, with this new chapter, will Prime Minister Truss should we expect any changes to British foreign policy or specifically any interactions with the United States?
I think her plate will be too full. She has got, as I mentioned there, to figure out how she subsidizes energy over the winter so that poor people in this country aren't cold. She's got to figure out how to steer Britain's support of Ukraine and the war, and she's also got to deal with soaring inflation. Common sense, and most of the analysts think that it'll be steady as she goes on the foreign front, and she has expressed in the past great affection and admiration for the United States, so it looks as if that'll be business as usual.
The economic plan proposed by Truss includes massive tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country and an energy price cap. Can she afford to do this?
Well, we haven't, the devil's in the details, as they say. So I've just looked at an editorial cartoon which shows under the heading promises, tax cuts and energy supply as a crumpled bit of paper in a wastebasket. So the view of the analysts is that a lot of these promises are going to get thrown out as reality sinks in. There may be tax cuts, but they'll probably be robbing Peter to pay Paul. Cut taxes, for example, income tax, and then hoist taxes on other things. And as for energy, I think that's a tougher one because there's no question that poor people are going to need help to heat their homes this winter. But the government doesn't really have enough money to subsidize energy prices. One of the things that's being mooted is that they'll cap a household fuel bill at somewhere just over $5,000 for the winter, and then put a tax down the road on energy to pay in retrospect for the help that people need now. But it's going to be very hard to square both those circles because Britain doesn't have much money. It's going to have to go to the international markets to borrow. It was already in the hole after Brexit, and the economy is just not doing that well.
All right, Liz, thank you very much. Appreciate it.